صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ثم أما بعد. Tonight hadith is a story actually. It's a bit a long story, but it's definitely is worth every word, every statement, because this is not an imaginary story. It's not fantasy, Jama'ah. That's a real story, and the one who's narrating the story for us is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can imagine the beauty of that story. It's the story of the people of the trench, Al-Ghulam was-Sahir, the young man or the young boy, and that magician that he had to go and learn from. So let's read what the Prophet tells us about the story. Hadith Suhaib radiallahu anhu وارضاه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كان ملك في من كان قبلكم. So there was living a king before you, from the people of the past. وكان له ساحر. And this king, he has a magician, a sorcerer. And back in the days, whether they have clergy to promote them to the people, to give them legitimacy with the people, or if they don't have any of that kind of clergy members to promote, they will be actually sorcerers. They will act like the clergy of that society back in those days. So this man, قال فلما كبر قال الملك إني قد كبرت فابعث لي غلاما أعلمه السحر. So the sorcerer and the magician, when he grew old, he told the king, look, I'm getting too old now. I won't be able to serve you much longer. Why don't you send me a young man, an apprentice that I can teach, so he could serve you later in the future as well too. فبعث عليه غلاما يعلمه. So they selected a young man from the community to be taught by this magician. وكان في طريقه إذا سلك راهب. So on the way between the king's place or the magician's place and his home, this young boy or this young man was going back and forth between the two places. One, at some point, he found a cave, and in that cave there was a rahib, a monk. He was a monotheistic monk, someone who worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال وقعد إليه. So he took a break and he sat with him to listen to him. قال فأعجبه. Usually he liked what this monk was telling him about faith and God and the meaning of life and the purpose of life and so on. So he liked that. وكان إذا أتى الساحر مر بالراهب وقعد عليه. So every time on his way to the magician, he stops by the monk to visit him and chit-chat with him, and then he continues to go back to that magician. فشكى فإذا أتى الساحر ضربه. So as a result of that, he started coming late to the lessons, and every time he comes late, that magician will beat him. Like, why are you late? Why don't you come on time? قال فشكى ذلك إلى الراهب. So he complained to the rahib, to the monk, says, look, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore, because every time I arrive late, he will beat me. So I don't want to deal with this. فقال إذا خشيت الساحر فقل حبسني أهلي وإذا خشيت أهلك فقل حبسني الساحر. Look, listen. If you're afraid of the magician, tell him my family held me back a little bit. And if your family say, why you're so late, tell them, look, I had to stay longer with the magician. Now, was that lies allowed the Jama'ah here? I mean, in this situation, that's what he did. And the Prophet narrated this to us without commenting on it, which means it's all right in these situations. It's a matter of faith right now. فقال فبينما هو على ذلك. So he kept doing this for so long, learning from the magician, the tricks, and learning from the monk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فبينما هو على ذلك إذ أتى على دابة عظيمة قد حبست الناس. One day, on the way, there was a narrow passage in which there is a beast that is scaring the people, holding them back from going through. And the people just didn't want to go because they're afraid. Now, what kind of beast is that? We don't know. Some they say a lion, some they say something else, whatever that is. The idea is that it was an opportunity for this young man. He thought about it, he goes, today I will recognize who is truthful and who is not. قال اليوم أعلم الساحر أفضل أم الراهب أفضل. This is when I realized who is better in terms of their teachings. Is the monk better or the magician? فأخذ حجرا. So he grabbed a stone, a normal rock. فقال اللهم إن كان أمر الراهب أحب إليك من أمر الساحر فاقتل هذه الدابة حتى يمضي الناس. A rock wouldn't usually kill that animal, but he says, my Lord, if you know, or if the matter of this rahib, this monk, is dearer to you than the matter of this magician. Ya Allah, I ask you to destroy this beast or kill this beast so that people can go through. And he threw it. فَرَمَاهَا فَقَتَلَهَا وَمَضَى النَّاسِ. So it was like a miracle for him. Because that rock wouldn't usually kill an animal like that. But it happened. So there is no way this is normal. There is no way this just was natural. It has to be because of the dua that he made. So, and that one, of course, that the truth fell in her heart, you know what? This is it. فَأَتَى الرَّاهِبَ فَأَخْبَرَهُ. So he went to the monk and he told him what happened. فقال له الراهب أي بني أنت اليوم أفضل مني قد بلغ من أمرك ما أرى. He goes, my dear son, today you're way better than me. You're now in a position that is dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than I am. Like I've never had that karama, that miracle happen to me after all these years. Some of the ulama, they comment in this matter, they said, look, and that is an evidence that sometimes a student can surpass his teacher. And also, as you can see, the older people, the adults, they wouldn't dare what the young ones would dare. I mean, their heart is still fresh and young and enthusiastic and strong, and they will take risks. But the adults wouldn't. So the Rahib told him, look, listen, وَإِنَّكَ سَتُبْتَلَى. He goes, as a result of this, you are going to be tried. Allah will test you. So be prepared. فَإِنْ ابْتِلِيتَ فَلَا تَدُلَّ عَلَيْهِ. If you're going to be tried, please don't lead them to me. Like I'm too old, I can't deal with fitna, with that kind of trial. So don't lead them to me. قال وكان الغلام يبرئ الأكمه والأبرص ويداوي الناس من سائر الأدواء. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put on his hand the miracle of treating people of different diseases. Diseases that people at that time didn't have any cure for. So he would give sight back to the blind, and the leper will be cured. So like miracles. And the reputation of this young man starts spreading among the people. So Jalis al-Malik سمع ذلك الأمر. So one of the viziers of the king, he heard about that, and this man grew old and he lost his sight. So he went to him and he gave him so many gifts. فقال ما ها هنا لك أجمع إن أنت شفيتني. He says, all of this is yours if you bring my sight back to me. فقال له إني لا أشفي أحد. I said, look, I don't cure anybody. It's not me who does that. إنما أشفي إنما الله يشفي الناس. Allah is the one who treats the people. فإن آمنت بالله تعالى دعوت لك دعوت الله فشفاك. If you believe in Allah, I'll make dua for you and hopefully Allah will cure you. فآمن به بالله تعالى فشفاه الله تعالى. So he believed in Allah and he was cured. For he came to the king walking without any assistance. And the king says, what happened? من رد عليك بصرك. How come you have your sight back? How did this happen? قال ربي. He says, my Lord. He says, قال أولك رب غيري. You dare to have another God besides me? فقال ربي وربك الله. Says, your Lord and my Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فأخذه فلم يزل يعذبه حتى دل على الغلام. So he started hurting him and bothering him and torturing him until he spoke about that young man. So they brought the young man. فقاله الملك أي بني قد بلغ من سحرك ما تبر الأكمه والأبرص. Like saying, wow, your knowledge and magic brought you to this level now. You can treat people with these diseases and and you do all these things. فقال إني لا أشفي أحد. I'm not the one who's treating, curing the people. إنما يشفي الله تعالى. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's curing the people. فأخذه فلم يعذبه حتى دل على الراهب. So he kept torturing that young man until he spoke about that monk. فجيء بالراهب. So they brought the monk. فقيل له ارجع عن دينك. Says, you're the source of this problem. You need right now to renounce this faith so that this young man will realize that you're just fake. So this man فوضع المنشار في مفرق رأسه فشقه حتى وقع شقه. He refused. So they cut him with the sword 2 pieces, or with the saw. أعوذ بالله. The kind of torture people, subhanAllah, they have in their minds. فقال ثم جيء بجليس الملك. So they brought that vizier, the minister. So it's now the same thing. This is going to happen to you. He said, I refuse. I'm not going to renounce my faith. They did the same thing to him. And he was killed. Then they brought the young man. They told him the same thing too. So he refused. فدفعه إلى نفر من أصحابه فقال اذهبوا به إلى جبل كذا وكذا. He goes, take him to such and such mountain, scare him off. If he can renounce his faith, otherwise throw him off that mountain. So they took him to the mountain. And when they arrived there, he says, قال اللهم اكفنيهم بما شئت. He says, Ya Allah, protect me from them in whichever way you will. فالله سبحانه ورجف بهم الجبل فسقطوا. So the mountain started shaking, like an earthquake. And all these soldiers just kind of like fell off. And this young man came back walking to the king. When he entered, of course, obviously the king was scared. قال ما فعل أصحابك? What happened to the soldier I sent with you? He goes, Allah took care of them for me. My Lord took care of them for me. So he gave him again to other group of soldiers. He says, go take him to, put him in a boat. Go into the sea. When you're in the middle, just throw him in there and come back if he doesn't renounce his faith. So when they went out there, فقال اللهم اكفنيه بما شئت. Ya Allah, protect me from them in whichever way you will. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moved the waves and the water, and these people, they fell off, the soldiers, they fell off the boat, and the young man came back again to the king. So when he saw him, he said, what happened to the people? Because Allah took care of them. And he told him, then listen to me. You're not going to be able to kill me like this. The only way you'll be able to kill me, قال إنك لست بقاتل حتى تفعل ما هو. So how are you going to kill you? He says, تجمع الناس في صعيد واحد. You bring everybody in one place. وتصلبني على جذع. And you crucify me on a tree. ثم خذ سهما من كنانتي ثم ضع السهم في كبد القوس ثم قل بسم الله رب غلام ثم ارمي. He goes, then you take an arrow and you target me and you say to the people, while people listening, in the name of Allah, the Lord and the God of my God and the God of this young man. He says, only then you will be able to do that. He did. قال بسم الله رب الغلام ثم فإذا فعلت فعل ذلك فجمع الناس. So he called all the people. He did what he said to do. And when he did that, قال بسم الله رب الغلام. He says, in the name of the Lord, or the name of Allah, the Lord of this young man. Then he threw that arrow and it hit him, and that young man died. So when that happened, all the people who were around, and they all once thought this man was their Lord or their God, they heard their king knowing the story of this young man, so they all believed. They all believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And قيل للملك, so the king, when he was told, رأيت ما كنت تحذر قد والله نزل بك حذرك. What you were scared of, that the people believe in this young man, you did it. Now they believe in his message, all of them. فأمر بالأخدود بأفواه السكك فخدت وأضرم فيها النيران. So he ordered for trenches to be dug into the roads of the city, and the fire was lit in these trenches, and they brought everybody asking them, would you renounce your faith? If not, you're going to be thrown to the fire. قال لم يرجع عن دين فأقحموا فيها. And then they did that to a lot of these people in that town. حتى جاءت امرأة, a woman, she came with a baby in her hand. فتقاعست أن تقع فيها. She hesitated because of her child. فقالها الغلام, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that child speak. Says, يا أماه اصبري فإنك على الحق. Says, oh mother, endure like this ordeal, for you are on the right path. And that was one of the miracles that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, the hadith, that few children spoke when they were babies, like Jesus, the son of Mary, obviously, one of them. And this kid, another example, the Prophet mentioned the hadith of the child of the monk who was accused falsely of committing actually the haram. But what we learn from the story over here in the chapter of patience is that, subhanAllah, when it comes to the fitan, people, they're going to go through a lot of trials and can be very, very severe. And what is more severe than a situation like this one, subhanAllah? If you believe, Allah will test you. It's not going to be an easy ride to go to paradise. You're going to be personally tested. You're going to endure a lot of difficulty and hardships. So it's not going to be an easy path. And these people in the story, the moment they pronounced their faith, the moment they admitted the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they proclaimed their faith and believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, they were put immediately to this test. And many of them, of course, they passed because they decided, you know what, I'd rather go to my Lord than live this life lying to myself about this false God. And subhanAllah, this is one of those miracles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made and put on the mouth of this young boy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and keep us all firm in our iman. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us safe from any trials, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and give us patience against anything, Ya Allah, that we endure. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of us, Ya Allah. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Any questions, Jama'ah? Surah Al-Buruj, yes. That's now, there was a document in Surah Al-Buruj, and people, they ask and they wonder, where is this town today? So I remember reading actually about it, and they say this town is most likely in the southern area of the Arabian Peninsula, Nora Jazan, or Khamis Mshel. Is it Jazan, right? Najran, yes. In that area, which is basically the southern belt of Saudi Arabia, they excavated the areas, and they can tell that this probably was the location where the incident happened. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Now,
was the boys, this might be an answer, but here's your opinion. Was the boys' idea to gather everybody and have him killed that way, obviously, like it's a form of da'wah, was that wahi, or do you think that was just like his idea? Like he had a clever idea?
So the question is, when the boy asked the king to gather the people all in one place, was that his own brilliant idea, or was that an inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he communicates with the anbiya through wahi, through the angels. But others, he does it through what we call ilham, which means an inspiration. So perhaps he was inspired to ask for this, and he did. Wallahu ta'ala. Na'am. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.